When moving one's business online, there are 3 lessons that people learn too late when building their website. The first lesson is that people need to have a privacy policy when building their website, because people these days are concerned about what is happening with their data. And so when they come to your website, many people want to have a good understanding of what information you're going to collect from them and what you're going to do with it, and also how you might safeguard the information that you are gathering on them. So it's really important that you have a written privacy policy on your website that's available to anybody who may visit your site. And at least in the United States, this is a legal requirement, so that in many states, you will be fined if you don't have a privacy policy visible on your site that's easy to be or reviewed by a customer that is coming and that wants to know what's happening with your data. In addition to things like forms that collect direct information from the customer, you also have to think about things that you're adding to your site that actually also collect data, and you have to address those things. So for example, if you're integrating things like Google Analytics to understand who is actually visiting your site, where they're coming from, that's all information that's being shared from the customer. And you may have to also, in your privacy policy, refer to the privacy policy of that organization. So you may have to have a reference to the Google and its privacy policy in your privacy policy because you use their services. So it's not just what you're doing, but all the third-party vendors that you use on your site. So even payment gateways, and then you need to include a reference to the privacy policies of those payment gateways. A second lesson that people don't understand about websites is that it is also required to have a cookie banner in some instances. So a cookie banner is required, especially if you're trying to follow the GPDR, which is the privacy guidelines of the European Union. And it doesn't really matter if you're not specifically marketing to Europe, because this policy actually refers to any European citizen that may be living elsewhere. So you can have a European Union citizen that's living in the United States that happens on your website, and they expect to see a cookie banner because that's the requirement of the GPDR. And the GPDR basically is stating that the cookies that are being placed on a person's computer by your website, these are little packets of information that help identify what computers are coming to the websites. So these cookies are left on the person's computer when they come to your website. By the GPDR standards, a person needs to be made aware what types of cookies are being left on their computer, and they can either choose to accept those cookies or not. For the United States, it's California that has the strictest rule regarding a cookie banner, but unlike the European law that requires pretty much everybody to have a cookie banner, for California, only businesses of a certain size or with a certain number of employees are subject to the California law. And if you aren't compliant, then California will actually fine you. And then the third thing is web accessibility. So in the United States, we have the Americans with Disabilities Act, and it was applied to the internet in 2010. And it means that your website needs to be built in a way that it can work with the assistive devices of the disabled. And this allows disabled people, people who may be blind, people who may be having hearing problems, that they can access the content on your site in the same way as someone who is abled. And if you don't have your site built in a way that's web accessible, again, and you are in violation of the ADA Act, then you again can be fined and sued. And ADA lawsuits can be expensive. So for some businesses, they learn this too late. This is when they get that demand letter in the mail that's demanding thousands of dollars, unless they do fixes. And then the fixes cost thousands of dollars. And if they choose not to do the fixes, then they get sued and they have to proceed to a lawsuit. They have to hire a lawyer, and that can cost up to $10,000 or more. And then the lawsuits themselves are averaging about $35,000. So these are expensive lawsuits. And if you're unaware of these things, you can be caught and then have a shock to your business. you may not be able to be prepared for this. And it happened in 2020 that several New York galleries ran afoul of the ADA requirements, and they were sued, and some of those galleries closed. They lost their business because they didn't have the capital to basically manage those lawsuits and hire the lawyers they needed to take care of this issue. So, don't learn these lessons too late, like these business owners that lost their business. If you're moving your business online, take the time to find out what are the legal requirements of a website, and make sure if you're not building the website yourself, that you hire a designer that is aware of the legal issues for a website in your local area. Because if you're outsourcing your work to a designer that lives overseas, because it tends to be more economical to do that, make sure they're a designer that is well versed in the laws of your area, especially if you live in the United States, so that they will build a website for you that is compliant. And ultimately, the reason you also want to be compliant is because you want to be someone that is helping the disabled to use your website. Because if they can't use your website, they can't be a customer. And it's been shown that almost 20% of the population is disabled. So that's a huge population of people that you are hiding your product from, that aren't able to see your services. Don't learn these lessons too late. Make sure your business is open to the disabled, because they have been found to have a lot of buying power, and they are loyal customers because they take the time to support business owners that support them. So if you make your website accessible, it's good for your business. Presented by Designers Learn Code.